and welcome back to Urban Yoke Homestead. Benvenuti, bentornati. My name is Giulia, io mi chiamo Giulia, and I am very delighted to have you join me for this awesome video. Today, I wanted to speak to you about Syringomyelia. Some of you may know that I am chronically ill, and some of you may know that illness, or what I've been diagnosed with, is Syringomyelia. And I have idiopathic syringomyelia, which basically means there is an unknown cause. That's the idiopathic part. There's a lot about this disease that is quite interesting, that is quite unique, but there are other parts about it that may overlap with other illnesses, like multiple sclerosis, for example, and there may be other comorbidities or other chronic issues that go in hand with it, such as EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So I wanted to jump in and speak to you a little bit about what syringomyelia is, what it is to me, and what the common causes are, why mine is idiopathic, and then also just a bit of a perspective from, what it's like dealing with chronic illness or a rare disease in a country where there's very little resources for it. Obviously, as usual, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and I will try to answer them to the best of my abilities. Okay, so let's move on to what syringomyelia is, and I'll also explain to you why it is not really a true diagnosis in a sense. So it is a diagnosis, but there's a part missing. It's the idiopathic, right? What's the cause? So what is syringomyelia? Syringomyelia is when you have a fluid-filled cavity in your spinal cord, to put it simply, generally in the shape of a syringe. So that's an elongated shape that tapers on both ends, creates kind of a point, almost looks like a diamond in a sense. A jewel. It's a jewel. And it most often, occurs at either the cervical or the thoracic spine. So cervical is up here, thoracic is around the middle of your spine, and then lumbar is lower spine, and then you've got your sacral, which is, all the way up here. And so typically it's cervical or thoracic or both, and it's rarely in the lumbar area. Personally, I have it in the cervical, thoracic, and touching the tip of the lumbar, so in my L1. And so you've got this cavity, this syrinx, essentially, that is now filled with fluid, and that fluid then can, expand and push onto the spinal cord, making either larger syrinxes or not larger ones. But either way, they're putting pressure on the actual spinal cord itself. So what are we talking about in the spinal cord? It's the nervous system. It's things that, controls your body. It's the reason I can move around. But what happens when you have syringomyelia is that the message isn't quite all there. And so sometimes you have unusual symptoms, which we'll get into shortly. But basically, syringomyelia is something that affects the spinal cord and affects your nervous system. And it's generally believed, or, that this is caused by an obstruction of some kind. Okay, so what are the causes of syringomyelia now that we've looked into what it is? It's, it's just something that is there inside your spine, and it's causing damage. It's causing quite a bit of damage. And so what are the causes of syringomyelia? As we said, the main cause, the most common association, is Chiari malformation. And that is, I believe, a congenital condition that affects the tonsils in your brainstem, so back here. And I would encourage you to look up a lot more on Chiari malformation. There are different types as far as I understand. Personally, I do not have Chiari malformation and I do not know what it is like, but the people I have spoken to, do speak about headaches, dizziness, and quite a bit of pain. And the pressure on, your brainstem puts pressure onto the spinal cord, and then that allows it to make these gaps. I believe that's the understanding. If you do have Chiari malformation, please put that down in the comments, and if you're willing and able to share, please do that. I would love to know a bit more about it, but personally I don't have it. The other second most associated reason or cause is spinal cord injury. So from an accident, for example, where there's a lot of pressure put onto the spine, and then that allows for these pockets to open up. And I haven't had such an accident, and I've been this way for a very, very long time. If you'd like to know more about my diagnosis story, I'll leave a link up there, and I will also put one down in the description so you can go and watch that video. But do know that it was hard for me to share, so it's not the most exciting video. These kinds of things are quite personal. It starts to make up your personality and who you are, so it can be difficult to separate sometimes. And it was the first time I was telling people my diagnosis story from my perspective. So those are the two main causes, and then there are other causes that can be there. So you could have arachnoid cysts, you could have an issue in the sort of arachnoid space, and so that's that's just outside of the spinal cord as far as I understand. I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a neurosurgeon, so for me it can be quite difficult understanding all of these terms, but as far as I understand from what is seen from my scans, I don't have any of these issues. I also don't have any tumors, which could be one of the causes, and I don't have any issues in my brain or my head, so no hydrocephalus, which is when you have a lot of water or liquid logged in your head. Is not a good thing. There are a number of causes that are associated with it. I do know they were looking for vascular leakages with me to see if that could be a potential, putting off the pressure essentially in my body, but that was not found. 1 second. Ooh, getting hot out here, which is good. It's good. It's summer here in South Africa, so we want a bit of heat, but I've been enjoying the rain. Yeah, so those are kind of the causes. It's this congenital disease or spinal cord injury, and by spinal cord injury I mean you got to be like a car accident or something quite serious. It's not just not just a tiny tumble or something. It's got to be quite a serious accident. But I will leave many links down below so you can go and do some reading on syringomyelia yourself if you are interested in a specific cause. Okay, so for those of you who are interested in the fact that I have idiopathic syringomyelia and there's an unknown cause, and what does that mean? So syringomyelia itself is actually secondary. There has to be some kind of obstruction causing pressure to then cause these openings, these cavities to appear in the spinal cord. And once you find that cause, you can generally fix most of the issues with the syringomyelia. So if you have a cyst in the arachnoid space, that can be dealt with via surgery, and it often alleviates or even drains out the cavity. So you have this sort of a situation where sometimes you find the syringomyelia, and then you've got to go and investigate what could that cause be. And every now and then, but I mean quite rarely, you'll find people like me. I've personally only come across, I think, 5 people in total that have idiopathic syringomyelia, and they're all in different countries, and I've never actually met them in person. We've only interacted over some chat or other kind of platform, and so it's very difficult to actually know what to do. So you'll end up putting a lot of your information and your own treatment plan on what other people with syringomyelia are doing, but those people have the cause, and then you can deal with the cause, be it Chiari, be it hydrocephalus, whatever the case may be. But when it's idiopathic like mine, what does that mean? It means that via the scans and all kinds of investigation aside from surgery, because I did not want to do an investigatory surgery session. That was just not something I wanted to do and was willing to do. But that's It's kind of just how it is. And so through all of that, they were just not able to find the reason for the syringomyelia being there. So yes, I have this diagnosis, but the diagnosis is also somewhat tricky because the doctor cannot give you a prognosis. And even I can't tell you what it's like for someone else with syringomyelia. I can't say, this person with idiopathic syringomyelia, they've probably got these and these and these symptoms, and this is what their daily life is like. It's just not true. Where the syrinx is placed in the spine also affects what kind of symptoms you have, and there's a lot of factors that go into it. So being idiopathic, what that means is that I just don't know what the cause is, and my treatment plan, my prognosis is always going to be half. It's always going to be this halfway step of me dealing with the symptoms, actually, instead of the cause. So when I was diagnosed initially, we thought we had found the cause, but it seems that there are other factors at play. And so once we immigrated to Italy, I'm going to start finding out a little bit more about that. If you want to know about our immigration plan, I will leave links up at the top and down in the description so you can follow along on our little immigration plan to Italy. And if you're also interested in following along with my journey and seeing if I can actually find the cause, then do that as well. I hope that I can. If I can't, I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I've managed to become stable, and that is a win in itself. That is something I'd like to say to people who have chronic illness or are dealing with misdiagnosis or are currently undiagnosed and that kind of stuff. Remember that if you have achieved stability, if you are living your life and you are doing what you feel is best for you, you've made it. Just remember that. I used to beat myself up for not being able to live a certain life or do certain things. But once I admitted my limitations, such as I can't work in an actual office space, leaving the house, it's risky, and it puts a lot of anxiety on me. The travel, it's too much. I work from home. I've been doing that. It was a struggle to get it started, but I've been doing that for several years, and I'm much happier. And it's just one example of accepting your limitations and focusing on your strengths. Because remember, you're the one surviving this. You got people all around you, and they're helping you, and even if you don't have people helping you, you're the one surviving this. And achieving stability should be your main goal. From there, you can move on, because you need mental health to keep physical health going. These two go hand in hand. I know it's a cliche, but keep that in mind. And if you're someone who is taking care of a person who's chronically ill, what I want to say to you is, it takes courage. It's not easy. But I just want to remind you that communication is key. A person who is in pain is not really in the right sound of mind all the time. So communication is key, and sometimes taking a step back and realizing it's not you. For the last sort of segment of this video, because I'm kind of losing light now, we've got clouds coming in, so sorry if the light comes in and out. It's just having a bit of difficulty out here. The symptoms. So what are the symptoms? Symptoms can vary quite a bit between the people who have syringomyelia. Even as idiopathic, as I said, depending on where the syrinx or the cavity is, it can greatly affect sorry about the wind, I'll hurry this up. It can greatly affect what kind of symptoms you're feeling. But generally, most people with syringomyelia will have to deal with some kind of dizziness, headaches, chronic headaches, migraines, and pain. And I'm going to say pain in a general sense because it can be pain from spasms, it can be pain from, like inflammation on the inside. Sometimes there's just random pain. I went through 2 weeks where from my elbow to my wrist, it was just excruciatingly sore. I actually started crying and passed out the one day because the pain was too much and I didn't realize how intense it was getting. and that was completely random. There's no reason for it. So there's no rhyme or reason, but there's lots of pain. I personally also have a lot of twitches, especially when I'm relaxing, so my body kind of does what it wants. Heyo. And then the other symptoms generally are loss of sensation. So it's quite specifically in the hands. You lose, your hot and cold sensation. You can even start to become quite numb to pain. So certain parts of your body will have excessive pain, certain parts will experience, less pain, and it can also be hemispherical. So it can be the top half, it can be the lower half, it can be right, the left. Personally, it's mostly the right side of my body that is most painful. So when you see me in a video, you probably see me leaning on the left side. Most of my pain is on the right side, and my right hip is quite particularly bad. It's quite bad. So, yes, before this weather gets a little too crazy, I'm going to end it here. That is Syringomyelia in a nutshell. If you are interested in knowing a little bit more about daily life with Syringomyelia, please leave me a comment and I'd be happy to share some of that with you. But I thought since some of you will be going on this homesteading journey, it would be nice for you to know what is going on with me, what my chronic illness is, and as we go, I can explain to you certain tasks on homesteading that actually help me improve my life and have helped me realize I can give this information to able-bodied people who, could benefit from this kind of perspective as well. So, without further ado, thank you very much for joining me for this video. Grazie tanto e alla prossima. See you next time. Ciao!